I want to be able to come home and talk to my wife and my kids after a difficult day and be excited and still have just be like, you know what? I did some hard things today, but I got a lot done. I feel really successful. I feel accomplished. I had a lot of fun. And let me tell you about the fun thing I did and the cool thing that's going to happen tomorrow. I think if we lose the joy and we lose the fun in what we do, um, that's where the dream starts to die. And so whether you call it the American dream or the vision, or, you call yourself a visionary or a dreamer, the words all kind of blend together, and all of it comes down to like, yeah, we're here for a certain amount of time. And no matter what your goals are, if you're not having fun as you pursue those goals, what the hell are you doing? Do something else. This is America. We can do whatever the hell we want tomorrow and the next day.
I'm pumped to see you. Thanks for taking the time to do this.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for having me and doing this. It's exciting. I love this kind of stuff.
Yeah, we're connections and alumni, and it's about 2/3 CollegeWorks alumni and about a third other connections in the business world. And we're trying to put together numerous different careers and expose kids to all the different jobs and career paths and how to be successful. So
That's awesome.
it's not just directed at a CollegeWorks only audience. It's kind of made to be agnostic. And then, obviously our interns are a big part of the listener base, but it's actually taken off in some other groups as well. So we're getting.
That's awesome. Yeah. Well, and gosh, it's been a long time for me since CollegeWorks. So I like talking about it. It's part of my story, being an entrepreneur, but it's, hopefully still relevant. I'm still young as compared to, I think, a lot of other
Sure.
entrepreneurs. So
Well,
I like to think I'm relatable.
absolutely. I'll do an intro and then we'll just get into the outline. And I don't want it to be just CollegeWorks. You've got some amazing stories to tell. So we'll try to keep it moving and get it wrapped up in under an hour. And then afterwards, I'll record like the show opener and some other stuff to send the recording company. They'll build out the episode and publish it, and we'll let you know when it's going to be published. So you'll be able to have access to it and everything. But it'll be our spring season. So we're recording a bunch this winter. And then we'll have about 40 episodes that go out weekly for the spring through the summer. So I don't know when it'll be released. It could be in as early as February. It could be as late as May. So, all right. I have my own little intro written, so I'm just going to jump into that, and then my
That's
energy.
good.
I'll bring some energy, and then we'll jump right in. So, RT, man, we know each other from back in the day at CollegeWorks, and I got to watch you take your engineering degree and this awesome entrepreneurial spirit you have to found an absolutely incredible company. And you've had to deal with all kinds of stuff. I followed your story and haven't had a chance to talk to you about all of it, but you've had to deal with figuring out how to finance a business. You had to face a threat from the largest competitor in the world in a federal court case in your industry in this like David Goliath battle. That's amazing. I know you're super passionate about the American dream. You've launched multiple brands and also are implementing a bunch of innovative management techniques like the 4-day work week and sharing all these stories on multiple content channels. So I think of you as like this vintage American made products, but with modern marketing, modern manufacturing, and this old meets new. And the Edge of Excellence, we're all about sharing excellence and telling people what it takes to be excellent. You've excellently navigated all these challenges, and I can't believe you're almost a decade in. And you've dealt with figuring out how to take these excellently made goods and put excellent people around you and build an excellent business to inspire other people to achieve the American dream. So we thank you a ton for taking your time to share with all these people in their 20s that are passionate about following their dreams. So thanks for being on the show today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Sean. Appreciate you. And yeah, this is fun. I love telling the story, and hopefully just, I don't want to say inspiring someone, but encouraging someone to feel like it's okay and you're not alone in this crazy idea that maybe we can pursue the American dream. And hustle and build something for ourselves. It's been a journey, and I'm happy to share any piece of it, good, bad, and indifferent.
Fantastic. So we got to start with, what's your definition of excellence?
My definition of excellence is doing the hard things no matter what and making them appear easy to the outside.
Doing the hard things and making it look easy.
Yeah, and I heard this guy recently at an entrepreneurial conference, and he said somebody was just like, how do you do it all? He runs like, I don't know, 20 different companies, and hundreds of millions in revenue across all his businesses, and he's talking and he's a family man, he's talking from the front of the room, seems so calm and collected, and they were like, how do you do it all and like show up so stoic? And he was just like, I'm like a duck above the water, I'm cruising and it looks like everything's smooth, but beneath the water my little legs are just pumping like crazy and you can't even tell. And we all laughed, but like, I just love that analogy. And I think that's so true for most entrepreneurs, is when you're doing it right, from the outside, everybody thinks everything's awesome. And it's really only the people close to you that know how freaking hard it is. And those people that are close to you, can help you with those hard things. And so, we're not alone. We're never alone. And you definitely, in my opinion, I don't think you can achieve excellence by yourself. So yeah, I love that.
But do the hard things, make them look easy. I like the one of the buffalo facing into the wind, and this, when there's a storm that comes, the cows like walk with the storm, and then they wind up kind of staying in the storm longer, and the buffalo just heads right into it, and it's super hard, but they get out of the storm faster.
Yeah, agreed. That's I use that in every like business plan presentation that I have, and really talking about not being afraid of change and being okay to pivot. And if you have to pivot and you have to do something hard or different than was the plan, you just run straight into the hard thing, because you know that if you put your focus in it, it's going to go a lot faster. And that's how buffaloes weather storms, and it's how it's different than the cows just letting it happen.
Love it, man. So we got to go all the way back to what were you like early in life? And I know you had some early entrepreneurial, and we're recording this pretty close to Christmas. I think that's a time of year that was important to your early entrepreneurial development. So what was high school and college like?
Yeah, so, early, going way back, I grew up on a Christmas tree farm. And so my great-grandfather started the Christmas tree farm in 1941. And so I'm fourth generation entrepreneur. The tree farm was basically a side hustle for my family for most of our lives. My grandfather got a doctorate degree in forestry from Duke, and he was a forester for the state of Pennsylvania, and then had his own farm, our farm on the side. Both my parents worked full time. They worked in advertising for big advertising firms, and then they would come home and take care of the farm on the nights and weekends. And so from a little kid, I was just kind of like, okay, this is what we do. We work during the day, and sometimes about half the week we also work at night, and we work on the weekends. And that's where we're tending to a farm and we're taking care of this thing. And then, with Christmas trees, you only make money 1 month out of the year. And so, when I was really little, my dad taught me about budgeting and saying like, okay, we made, let's say $10,000 today. We're going to put $9,000 in the bank because we need that for the rest of the year. And then the other 1,000 is what we're going to use to pay our current expenses. And, that just so many little lessons like that when I was, really little, like 5, 6, 10. And all through high school, I worked on the farm. I also worked other jobs. I worked in a grocery store. I was a server at a restaurant. I did all the things, and just tried it all, mostly to make money, and try to, buy video games. At that time, I was pretty simple life. Like when I had free time, I was playing video games. And then, even though both my parents worked in business, like specifically advertising, I think because I played Legos a lot as a kid, they were like, oh, you should be an engineer. And so they kind of pushed me towards engineering. And then I was looking at Penn State, and Penn State was, I don't know, top 10 in probably 12 different engineering degrees. And, um, and so I ended up going to Penn State. I switched majors a few times trying to figure out like what type of engineer I wanted to be. And I ended up, I think, sophomore year landing on industrial engineering, which most of my mechanical engineer friends and aerospace engineer friends, they call that imaginary engineering because it's a lot easier, a lot less math than some of the other things. But I focused on logistics. And, throughout that time, I mean, freshman year, I applied for a few times and finally got into CollegeWorks. I had to, I think, CollegeWorks painting doesn't take very many, or didn't take very many engineers at that time. And I think Joe Young, who officially, recruited me, I think he thought I was a nerd for a little while. And I was 19, so I didn't know what the heck I was doing. But that was my first taste of like real entrepreneurship. Like I was doing it myself. It was all on me. That was so fun. I did CollegeWorks for a couple years, and then did a few engineering internships with big companies like Procter and Gamble and Walmart. And then I got a great job with Walmart in logistics after school, working for the world's largest retailer, basically redeveloping and redesigning distribution centers right out of school. So that was my corporate job, and that was my college experience. And somewhere along the line, I think it was junior year, I had a crazy idea on the golf course with my friend Tyler, and that turned into Vortic Watch Company, which is what we have today now, 12 years later.
So when you were going through all that, did you think engineering, I'll be an engineer by day and an entrepreneur by night, or did you think you would build a business with your engineering experience?
It sounds dumb, but I wasn't thinking. I didn't really have a plan. I didn't really know, it all sounded fun. I would say I was expected to go to college. Like it was just part of, like I said, my grandfather had a doctorate degree in his field. Both my parents had master's degrees. So, it was just like, okay, RT's going to go to college. And I was an only child, so it's like, you're going to go to college, and after college, then you figure out what you want to do. And I think I was expected to go to college. I was basically expected to have some kind of corporate job or like big job. Like that was what was set up for me ever since I was a little kid. And I accepted all that, and that was just the plan, and I didn't question it much. It was just like, okay, I'm going to do those things. So I got the great internships with the big companies, and I did all those things. And I got good grades through all of high school and college. And I think it was CollegeWorks at first, when I was a kid, I was a freshman, and I was making six figures painting houses for the summer, and on the leaderboard for Pennsylvania and national. I was just like, holy shit, like I don't know what I'm good at, but like I'm winning in this, and I'm making money, and this is really fun. And everybody that talks to me is like, man, you're really good at sales, or man, you must be really good at production or something. And so I got all this like amazing validation for the world of entrepreneurship and encouragement around the hustle. And then I tried to apply that, like working late and working long hours and working on side projects. I tried to apply all that through my big company internships, and I didn't get the same validation. Like when you work for Procter and Gamble, when you work for Walmart, like the Fortune 100 companies, the hustle only gets you so far. Like most people work 9 to 5, and now it's probably even weirder with like, work from home and stuff like that. People just don't really see you grinding. And if they see you still at the office, like when I worked in Bentonville, Arkansas for Walmart, if you were still in the office late at night, it's like there was something wrong. You were doing something wrong. It wasn't like perceived the same way. And that's what I love about entrepreneurship. Is just like the work I put in, the more work I put in, the more benefit I got out. And so I think to answer your question, I just tried everything, and the places and things that gave me the best validation and results back, I put my energy more into those things.
Yeah. So did you think at the time you were separating yourself from your peers or doing things other people weren't willing to do?
Um, I saw that in terms of like, now as a dad, I think so much about how I can create this type of experience for my sons. I have two little boys, 5 and 7 right now. And that hard-working attitude that I think it was really, instilled in me growing up on a farm. Um, and then the doing the hard things, like I think one of the hardest things and one of the best things about College Works and other things like it is having to knock on doors, like going door to door and knocking on somebody's door for the fact that like half of them just slam the door in your face or say no or whatever, like basically cold calling. Anyone that does cold calling in any way, God, it hardens you, in such an amazing way. I feel like it should be some sort of requirement for, like, if you want to be an entrepreneur, you want to work in sales or marketing or advertising, like you have to make 100 cold calls a day for a week or go door to door for, 7 to 10 straight days, before you can hire anyone else to help you with that. Like it just felt like a rite of passage to me. So to answer your question, I think, I don't know if it was resilience or what, but like, I just had fun doing those hard things, and the things that weren't fun for me or I didn't get good results for, I just figured out how to delegate, and I figured out how to hire people that was fun for them. And that's one of the biggest lessons I've learned now with I have 12 people in the current team here at Vortic. And there is always someone else on the planet that if you think something sucks, you're like, man, I really don't want to send emails all day. I really don't want to, run Facebook ads. I really don't want to do this type of work. There's somebody else, probably like live down the street from you. Probably, your friend knows them. They're right in front of your face, right here in your network. And they love that thing for whatever reason. And they think you're crazy for not liking it. And so when you say like, here's the job, and you can't put yourself into the job description by saying like, man, this sucks. Like this is the worst job ever, because they think that your job is the worst job ever and they would never want to do the thing that you do. And now as a team, you can do anything together and you're both having fun. And so, yeah, I think some of that is luck, finding people that enjoy going door to door and enjoy cold calling and enjoy, commission-based sales or whatever, is probably a lot harder now than it was 10 years ago. But there's always somebody that just loves it for some reason. You just have to find that person.
Yeah. So tell us what you're currently doing now and tell us more about your company and how you developed it.
Yeah. So the initial idea for Vortic was very simple. It was, a ton of kind of ancillary concepts in the watch industry around making watches in the United States. And it was just like, if we're going to make a watch, like we had a couple ideas for like an adjustable wristband and like, really cool, different like sport watches and things like that. And Tyler and I were, we were playing golf and we had these ideas. We're like, oh, watches and golf, like, let's make a really cool watch. And then we just went down the rabbit hole of like, if we're going to start a watch company, let's make it in the United States. And we went down that rabbit hole, and no one does that, especially at that time. There's just, even today, 10 years later, there's only a handful of companies that are actually making, like cutting the metal and like making watches in America. The entire watch industry is China and Switzerland. That's it. There's companies all around the world, but like I would say 95% of watches are made in China and Switzerland. And so that was really the concept. And we put the initial idea of what we founded Vortic on Kickstarter back in November of 2014. So it's officially been 10 years at this point. And the idea that we settled on to launch the company was taking antique American pocket watches and turning them into wristwatches. And the reason we did that is because the guts of the watch, so the movement is what we call it in the industry, all the gears and springs that tell time, the guts of the pocket watch were made in America 100 years ago. And America made like 100 million of these pocket watches because everybody had one. It was like the iPhone in, the early 1900s. You had a pocket watch and you had a clock. Those were only two ways to tell time. And fast forward to today, most people don't have any use for pocket watches. So these old American-made pocket watches are just sitting in pawn shops and jewelry stores, and nobody knows what to do with them. Most of them get scrapped for the gold and silver cases. And so it was this beautiful like clash of old and new, because we could take the inside of the old pocket watch out and then make the rest of the watch or the case and everything to turn into a wristwatch in America. And when we launched, it was one of the only American-made, like truly 100% made in USA wristwatches, which was really solving the initial problem. But then everyone, all the customers, were just like, it didn't even matter that it was American made. They were just like, oh, it's so cool. It's an old pocket watch inside a wristwatch. Like, and I was like, yeah, but it's made in USA. And they were like, yeah, that's awesome. But like, it's a pocket watch inside a wristwatch, you know? And still that happens today. It's just like, it's such a fun idea that I think we just got lucky and we stumbled onto this really unique and different product. And it looks different too. It's vortecwatches.com if you want to check it out. But it's, you know, it's a little piece of history on your wrist, and the face of the watch, the hands, and then all the gears and springs you can see through the back. They all have open backs so you can see the movement there. That's all a piece of American history. And then we manufacture the case and the crown and all the stuff to turn that pocket watch into a wristwatch here in Fort Collins, Colorado. And that's Vortec Watch Company. And then about a year ago, we started Colorado Watch Company, not to be confusing, two different brands. Colorado Watch Company is fully modern automatic watches similar to a Rolex or an Omega. You know, to simplify it, we never compare from a branding standpoint and a price standpoint, but trying to make Swiss quality watches, modern watches at scale in Colorado. That's our Colorado Watch Company. And now we have two brands. And really the point of everything that I do is manufacturing watches in the United States.
That's awesome. So when you're going through the operations of running these and having to come up with the ideas and find customers and build a brand, like what are the things you have to be excellent at in your role as a co-founder of the business?
Yeah. So I think step one is admitting what you're good at and what you're not good at. And then, like I said before, just like finding other people that are really good at the things that either you're not good at or that you don't like, you know? And you could call that leadership. You could call that delegation. You could call that just, I think it boils down to just awareness, you know, especially self-awareness. You know, what do you love? I say all the time to myself and my team, like, if we're not having fun, we shouldn't be doing it. And so I think that's a big one, is just starting that conversation and, you know, navigating that with yourself first, and then your first couple employees, and then, you know, building out managers that do the same thing and constantly, you know, work towards that. I think the biggest thing that I've focused on, especially recently, is systems and processes, and just structure and organization. As the visionary, as the founder of a company, and as the idea guy, which I think, you know, most of your audience probably is, you know, like me. If you're in my seat as that visionary, you have to make sure that the idea is fully baked before you share it with the rest of the team. And that's really hard, because a lot of times we have these awesome ideas and we just want to tell everyone. But that's one thing that I've struggled with, that I'm doing a lot better now, is just formulating the full plan and having it all planned out before I share it with the team, especially the managers who have to figure out who does what. And so, you know, to really boil all that down, I think it's staying organized, knowing exactly what you're good at, what you don't want to do, what you're not good at, and then time management, and just aligning all of those things with the proper time and the best time to get it all done. I think if you can do all those things, you can apply all that to really, you know, any business, and then kind of build out from there.
Wow. So what do you think a college student wouldn't know about what it's like to be an entrepreneur or build an American-made watch company? Like, what's hard to know before you get into it?
You know, I think you have to be pretty delusional to be an entrepreneur in general. I am very glad I didn't know a lot of the things that I know now, because I'm not sure that I think I would have taken the risk. I think I would have done it all again. I think if I went back, I would do it all again. But the things that the things that you should know that you can prepare for that I think are scary, but like you can work around and you can work through and you can plan for. The first thing is they always say know your numbers. So I mean, I was an engineering student. I'm good at math. If you're not good at math and you want to be an entrepreneur and you want to run a business, if you want even more than one employee, you need to know what a profit and loss statement is. You need to know what a balance sheet is. You need to know how to calculate cash flow. If you run out of money, you are done. And that doesn't have to be scary. If you're not good at math, if you don't know what any of those things are, that's okay. You can learn. You can Google it. I mean, ChatGPT will teach you all that stuff in like 10 minutes. But you got to know all that stuff. And you can't say like, oh, I'm going to hire somebody else to do that. You should not hire a bookkeeper, an accountant, a fractional CFO, and all the people to help you with those numbers until you're probably in at least the high 6, maybe 7 figures. At least you have a solid business beneath you. It's hard to justify spending money on that kind of stuff. So you got to just learn it yourself first. That ties into payroll. Your people are going to need to get paid every 2 weeks, no matter how much money is in your bank account. And that can be really scary, again, or you can just plan on it and rationalize it and say, well, I can't run this business without these people. And so I need to make sure I have enough money in the bank to pay all these people every 2 weeks, no matter what. And you just do the math backwards and you say, these 3 people cost this much. I need to make this much revenue and this much profit to cover that. And that means I need to sell this many watches. That's what it's like for me. I say a watch a day keeps the bankers at bay, and that's pretty much it, right? We need to keep selling at least 1 watch a day for Vortic. And now with Colorado Watch Company, hopefully we're getting into the hundreds of watches a month. And I can make all my loan payments. I can make all my payroll payments. I can put some extra cash in the bank and have some profit left at the end of the day if I do all that math right. So, I mean, I could talk about that topic and all the things I wish I knew and all that stuff all day, but I would say those knowing your numbers would be the first one. And there's a lot there. So I would start there and then kind of, branch off from there based on whatever stresses you out or what you don't know.
Yeah. So I think that's pretty common. I listen to a ton of entrepreneurial podcasts and books, and I mean, there's so many that would say, yeah, I didn't realize, how stressful the financial side could be, or, there's those days like, oh, it's before payroll and we're gonna have to put something on the credit card to make sure that everybody can get paid. And, as an intern at CollegeWorks, you're like, well, if my painters don't have to work next week, like they're not going to be super upset about that. Like they don't have as much, bills to pay, maybe if they're seasonal employees, or maybe they do. And you have that one painter that you're like, well, I have to keep this painter or this crew working, but my other crew doesn't really care if they have a job next week. So they'll be okay. So I don't have to sell, but running a full scale business, like you got to have revenue coming in or be willing to dip into savings or put something on credit to take that risk. So that could be daunting. Maybe what's kind of along those lines, what surprised you? Like what's different than you expected when you got started?
Well, I think the biggest surprise I had in the last decade was I got sued by the largest company in my industry, the Swatch Group. And so the only thing you need to know about the law as an entry-level entrepreneur or someone just getting started is that in the United States, anyone can sue anyone else for anything at any time. And that's just as open and honest as it is. You can sue someone for looking at you wrong. It's not going to last very long. It's going to get thrown out right away. But like lawsuits happen every day to everyone. And so when an attorney comes to you, like when you're setting up your business and they're like, okay, you need personal liability insurance, you need commercial liability insurance, you need car insurance for your business, you need all this stuff. You need insurance for all those things, and you need at least an attorney like in your back pocket. You don't have to pay them every month or every week, but just having some sort of legal advice before you dive in on a new revenue stream or a new business opportunity, just having an attorney say like, yeah, this looks good, or here's your risk assessment, with this. I think somebody in the insurance realm and somebody in the legal realm um, even just a friend that you can bounce some ideas off and just say, what am I missing? Um, those are things that can surprise you. And fast forward, that lawsuit took me 6 years to defend against, and we ended up winning in federal court, and it's a great story. But most people, and really the reason we won is because I never did anything wrong, and so I was falsely accused of trademark infringement and all this other stuff. And it was just a big company trying to bully us. But because I had great attorneys and great friends and investors that knew great attorneys, I was able to survive all that. Most people don't survive. Most small business owners don't survive big lawsuits like that. So I would say the bottom line is, just focus on your Rolodex, just the friends and the people around you, whether they're investors, advisors, other business owners, people who have done something similar, and just bounce ideas around periodically and just say, hey, what am I missing? Or can you give me a second set of eyes on this? And that just, I don't know, it's going to help you sleep at night, because somebody like me is going to be like, hey, so do you know anything about trademarks? Because I'm just worried that your watch, it says Hamilton on the face, and there's a huge company in Switzerland that also sells watches under that brand. So you might want to just talk to a trademark attorney and just see what your risk would look like. I never did that. And so I got this really fancy letter in the mail called a cease and desist. And now, like I said, it's a good story, but, the more people that you can have at your back and by your side, the more, you're just going to be able to get through those hard things.
Yeah. So that's kind of being on the edge of excellence. Like, you might have some haters, and there might be somebody that tries to derail you. And I assume this case is is already created kind of precedent and is a landmark case for other brands. But, I heard about it. I thought, well, geez, if I bought an old Corvette and I wanted to redo it, and, I can still put the Corvette logo on there, right? And, that shouldn't be an issue. And is that something people aren't allowed to do? Is it only General Motors that's allowed to fix my Corvette because they have the trademark? So, tell us more about that, how you guys won and what you did to prevail.
Yeah, so you're right. We did set precedent in the watch industry. But the specifics were, we take old pocket watches and turn them into wristwatches, right? There was 10 brands. I call them the Great American Watch Companies. One of them was Hamilton. Hamilton Watch Company made pocket watches in Lancaster, Pennsylvania from 1895 to 1969 when they went out of business. And then in 1972, that trademark, or the brand, Hamilton, was purchased by the Swatch Group, which now owns 30 different brands over in Switzerland, including Omega. And they manufacture modern watches with Hamilton on the face. And so the watches that I make, I call them the Lancaster. It's a Vortic watch with an old Hamilton pocket watch on the inside. It still says Hamilton on the face of the watch. We call it the dial. And we honestly just never thought about that being an issue, because, and the only time an attorney ever looked at that, they were just like, okay, well, you're taking an old thing and you're making it new. You're also changing it from a pocket watch to a wristwatch. So there's lots of legal things. It's like, the other thing that we claimed was that it was art. And so art is very protected by the law. And, if you're an artist, you can kind of do whatever you want, within reason. And so, at a first glance, to most attorneys, it's like, like you said, it's like, oh, it's kind of like a car, kind of like, turning a Ford car into a Ford limousine. It's still a Ford, so you keep the Ford branding on it. But like I said, anyone can sue anyone else over anything. So we got a cease and desist, and I tried for years. For the first 2 or 3 years, I literally sent a letter to every C-level executive at the Swatch Group. And I just said, hey, this seems like first of all, I'm a kid. I'm 24. Like, I'm not a threat to your multi-billion-dollar international conglomerate. Second of all, I can make maybe 300 of these a year. This is like a $1 to $2 million business. Again, I don't feel like I'm a threat. I don't feel like I'm taking business. And 3, I don't think legally we've done anything wrong. So I just want to clear this up. Can I buy you a cup of coffee, show you what we make? And let's just have a conversation about it.
And if anything, we might be helping your brand.
Yeah, and I didn't go there in the letter because like I didn't want to be too presumptive, but yes, that's what most of my customers thought is like, now we put out more historical content about the Hamilton brand than the modern Hamilton brand does itself today, and I still do. And I say to everyone I've ever met, Hamilton was the Rolex of America, and now I say the original Hamilton, just to clarify. But um, but that would be the first piece of advice. If you get sued, just reach out to the person. And most attorneys are going to tell you not to do this. And this is not legal advice. We need a big old asterisk on this part, Sean. But like, just see if you could sit down with the person and talk about it, like man to man, and just be like, really? Like, come on, like let's, you slipped and fell out front of my business. Like, can we just talk about this? Like, it was ice. Like, was it really my fault? There's so many facets to this. But I tried that. That didn't work. And so we escalated, and the first escalation was to federal court, which was in the Southern District of New York, which is where they sued me. And so I had to fly to New York City, and the second phase of a lot of lawsuits is called settlements. And I can't talk about it. It's a legal thing. You can't talk about settlement discussions. It's all behind closed doors and stuff like that. But really, it's a negotiation. So it's like, we offer to do this, they offer to do that. You try to figure it out with your attorney, their attorney, and a mediator, which is either a judge or someone who's like very familiar with the law, and they just say, hey, let's just kind of talk this out. None of that worked. We hit walls on both sides. So I refused to do certain things, they refused to do certain things. And so it's like, okay, well, we're going to trial, we're going to court. And that's very expensive. So you want to avoid that at all costs. And ideally you settle it out of court. And that's how I think, 80% of lawsuits are settled before you make it to court. But we risked it because we kind of had to. Because for us, if taking a Hamilton pocket watch and turning it into a wristwatch was deemed illegal by the federal government, which is what they wanted, then taking any pocket watch, which with any brand, Elgin, Waltham, Ball, all these other brands that we use, all these other watch companies from 100 years ago, taking any pocket watch, which with anyone else's brand on the dial, on the face of the watch, and turning it into a wristwatch would have been legal. It would have put me totally out of business on principle. And so on principle, I was just like, okay, well, if I've spent my entire adult life at this point working on this business, so if I go down, I'm going down with the ship. Like, this is going to suck, but like, I'm pretty sure the law's on my side, and every attorney I talk to is like, the law's on your side. It's just a big company they're trying to put you under. And then my attorney gave me some great advice, and he said, when they put you on the stand, like when you're up there sitting next to the judge, which was one of the coolest experiences I've ever had, massive courtroom in the financial district of New York, like 30-foot ceilings, ceramic everything, like just a beautiful original building in Manhattan.
Like a set of Law and Order.
Yeah, it's just hard to describe. And there was like 5 of us in this massive room that could have fit 500, and at that point, it was just me and the judge, basically. And there was attorneys, and there was all kinds of other stuff going on. Court reporter over there typing every word I say. It was a unique experience. But my attorney said, don't stop talking. Just tell the judge everything, because you haven't done anything wrong. And every piece of information you share is good. You want her to be on your side. And halfway through, she said, can I see your watch? And so I took it was a Hamilton, it was a Lancaster is what we call it. And I took it off and I handed it to her. And she's sitting like 10 feet up in the air, big throne of this thing. And there's no jury in this. Like, there was no jury. It was just the judge making a decision. And that's how I think most of these kind of things are. And she's like holding my watch, and I'm telling her about it and all that stuff. And I saw the light bulb go off where she was like, oh, you took a pocket watch, turned it into a wristwatch. That's not illegal. She didn't say that, but like she said it with her eyes. So she was just like, this is crazy. And not that judge, but a different judge throughout the mediation process. They told me this was an interesting case. And what an interesting case means is that there was no other similar cases that have ever been tried. and or no one's ever made it through settlement. Like they've all been settled out of court, or there's never been like ruling. No one slammed the gavel and said, this small company wins and this is okay. And she said, you don't want to be the defendant in an interesting case because it means you have to take it all the way and pay whatever it costs to go all the way in order to set that precedent. And we ended up doing that, but it was very expensive to defend ourselves that whole time. It was about 2.5 years of trial, of meetings. There was appeals, all this kind of stuff. But yeah, about 6 months after that day in court, a ruling came out. As a 40-page document that judge wrote, and basically she said in a lot of legal words, what Vortic does, taking an antique pocket watch and making it a wristwatch, is totally legal. It is okay as long as the consumer knows what they're buying and the consumer is not confused, which that's what trademark infringement is consumer confusion. As long as you know what you're buying, then it's totally okay. And she said we were doing all that right. And the Swatch Group could go pound sand. And that was awesome. And yeah, we celebrated for a little while. And then, there can be good things that come from that too. Like it was a David and Goliath story. And so a lot of people in the watch industry and even some big news outlets found the story. I was on national TV twice talking about that story. And so I paid 6 figures to defend myself, but we've made 7 figures off of just the notoriety of me being the crazy dude that took on this $1 billion conglomerate and won.
The obstacle is the way.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Do the hard thing, right?
That's incredible.
I did the hard thing. I ran straight into the storm.
That's incredible. So how do you maintain this? What's this vision of the American dream? And sounds like something that really drives you to go, I'm going to, take these risks and put in all this effort that I wouldn't maybe put in the 9-to-5 job. That, why is this important to you?
Yeah, I think when I first started as an entrepreneur, like when I was 19 or 20, I would have answered that with like YOLO. There's only like one life. We only have one chance at this. Like if we're gonna do it, let's do it. Let's have some fun. Now that I have a team and I have kids, I have a house. Like technically, if your definition of the American dream is to own a home with a white picket fence, and a yard and a couple of kids and a dog and a beautiful wife, like I got it. Like I'm there. I did that years ago. So now it's like, okay, now what? And one of my friends, who became an investor and a mentor, he said, you've made it when your employees start to come to you for W-2s so that they can buy a home. And when your parking lot starts to show up with, brand new cars. And basically your employees feel so confident in their jobs and your business that they're taking financial risk when they work for you. And that was like the next level that I've been like searching for. And now that's starting to happen. So that's part of it is that secondary American dream of like, okay, I did it for myself, and now I'm creating that opportunity for others. I'm not just creating American jobs, but I'm creating more American dreams, and that's really, really awesome. But again, I think a lot of it boils down to like, I want to be able to come home and talk to my wife and my kids after a difficult day and be excited and still just be like, I did some hard things today, but I got a lot done. I feel really successful. I feel accomplished. I had a lot of fun. And let me tell you about the fun thing I did and the cool thing that's going to happen tomorrow. I think if we lose the joy and we lose the fun in what we do, that's where the dream starts to die. And so whether you call it the American dream or the vision, or, you call yourself a visionary or a dreamer, the words all kind of blend together, and all of it comes down to like, yeah, we're here for a certain amount of time, and no matter what your goals are, if you're not having fun as you pursue those goals, what the hell are you doing? Do something else. This is America. We can do whatever the hell we want tomorrow and the next day.
That's awesome. So Any points along there you thought back to your college works painting days and thought, wow, this kind of prepared me for it, or I'm glad I went through that experience. Or what of that experience did you rely on throughout these challenges you've overcome?
Yeah, so I could rattle off a ton of things. I mean, just going door to door, knocking on doors, cold calling, literally phone call, cold calling. I mean, all that stuff. It's just the resiliency that gives you. Hearing no a bunch of times, and then hearing yes a few times, and being like high from that. Like all of that, I think is key. Like I said, I feel like some of that should be a rite of passage. Building a team, finding painters, hiring people. That's something that I don't think a lot of young people get an opportunity to do, especially that young. But Joe Young was my manager, and I love Joe. He, I hate him for this one thing, but now it's a love hate. Like I know exactly what he was doing. But I'll tell you a story. So it was paint training, and for those that haven't got there yet or don't know what I'm talking about, like once you get through a certain amount of months of sales, um, you've knocked on doors, you've sold these paint jobs for the summer, and now you have to learn how to paint someone's house. Like we're kids. Like I was 19, I was like, I'm knocking on somebody's house today. I've never painted a house in my life before, but I'd like to paint your house this summer. It's kind of a hard sell, but like I don't know. I ended up being pretty good at it, and I think the humbleness of that was cool. And I think there was a lot of entrepreneurs in my area, and they were like, "Oh, it's cool. It's this kid, it's doing this." And I think the energy of that's really exciting. So at that point in paint training, I don't know where I was sales wise. Like I don't remember the number, but I think I was number 2 in the state and number 3 or 4 in the country in all of College Works, and that was a really big deal. And I didn't know. I was a kid. It was just my first time. I was just doing my job. I was just trying to sell. Right. I was doing what Joe told me to do. Go close some deals. And we get to paint training. And everybody's there, and he's like, "Okay, I'm gonna show you how to paint this wall, right?" And he hands me a paint can and a paint can opener, and he says, "RT's gonna open the can of paint because he's kicking all your asses," or something like that, right? Or he's number 1 right now. And I'm sitting there, deer in headlight. I've never opened a paint can in my entire life. I've never painted, so I've never held a paintbrush. Right? I don't on the Christmas tree farm. I don't know. We never painted anything. We didn't have to. So it wasn't a skill that I had. And everybody's laughing at me, and I'm so embarrassed. And I was a kid. I didn't know how to deal with that emotion. Like I went from like this high of like he just told everyone that I'm doing so well, and then all of a sudden I'm like blushing and like, oh God, I felt so awkward. And then he yelled something or told everyone to stop. And he's like, "This kid has never opened a paint can in his entire life, and he's kicking all of your asses in sales. What the hell are you doing?" And it came full circle, and I realized it was a learning moment for everybody else. And then I learned how to paint. And I tell that story all the time to anyone that I'm trying to coach through like management or leadership or like having hard conversations, or you say what do they say, scold in private and praise in public, right? Like that was a formative experience that Joe gave me, that I think is obviously it was very impactful how he did it to me, and that exact thing. But that's, I think, the lesson that he shared that then I really learned at that point, and I hope everybody else there learned, and you can tell from the story, is you don't have to be great at that thing that you're making or selling. You just have to be great at your purpose or your part of the process. And then you just need to find great people to surround yourself with, which is what I did. I found great painters back in College Works, and now you don't want me to build your watch. I am not the person that puts the pieces together. I am not the person that designs the code for our machines that cut the metal. My role at Vortic Watch Company is marketing and finance. I run the business. And then really my role is finding great people that are artists and craftsmen, and they go make the watches. And and yeah, that stuck with me. And that's just like a core belief that I have is I don't have to be able to do everything, and that's okay. I just have to be really damn good at the things that I'm want to do and that I'm good at. And that's how I live my life. And yeah, that was 15 years ago, probably, maybe more. It's crazy.
That's incredible. So did you have to make any sacrifices along the way in your 20s to get where you are?
I mean, yeah, I think there aren't most of the girlfriends I had through my teens and 20s didn't want to date an entrepreneur, didn't want to date someone who worked the amount that I worked, and didn't want to date someone who can't turn it off. Like, I can't turn my brain off. I'm always thinking about work. I'm always talking about work. And so when I found my wife, Lindsay, she's an entrepreneur too. And like our date nights were like making business plans together and like talking about all this stuff. And like, we both thought it was like hot when we talk about work and money. And so, yeah, I narrowed my window of total available females that were interested in me significantly. And then I got really lucky and I found the perfect one. So you could say that's a sacrifice, or you could say that was high standards and luck. So that, but that's, that's real, right? Like, if you want to hustle, you either need a partner or a spouse or friends that get it, or you're just not going to have that, in your life. And that's okay. That's a sacrifice. I don't like the mindset of like, eating ramen noodles every day and like starving yourself as you're hustling. Like, I really think that some of the sacrifices that I made early on was I wasn't taking very good care of myself physically, mentally, like spiritually. Like, I was just hustle, always work all the time. And as I've learned, as I've grown, I've got a lot better at like really nourishing my body and taking care of myself, especially physically and mentally. Like, now I go to the gym at least 5 days a week. Even if it's 15 minutes, I just go just for myself, for my own like mental state. Like, I start the day right. I think there's so much to say about not making that sacrifice, but I did make a lot of sacrifices for, probably my first 8 years of just working all the time and never working on myself, always working on the business. Those are the big ones, for me, if I had to think back.
Yeah. So what are some other resources? I mean, one of the things I love about today's day and age is how much available information there is. I mean, there's books and podcasts and anything you want to know. Companies and people are going, I'm going to deliver value and I'm going to provide, we're trying to deliver a ton of value to our audience to give them the advice and point them in the right direction for different careers they can explore and connect them with different people. And yeah, we get to put our brand out there by doing that. But there's so much available now to people who want to start a business that maybe wasn't 10 or 15 or 20 years ago. I mean, you're documenting a lot of what you're doing and putting it out there. What are some resources you'd point to people that want to explore that path?
Yeah, so my favorite 2 books that helped me start a brand. So if you want to start a business that has a brand that's bigger than yours, if I'm going to start RT Custer's plumbing, you probably don't need this, but like, if you want to build something like what I have, Vortic Watch Company, Colorado Watch Company, something that's bigger than you, Start with Why is a book by Simon Sinek. And just literally that principle of like, why are you doing what you're doing? And starting with why in a branding standpoint makes a lot of sense. So Start with Why is a great book if you're getting rolling on building a brand. And then Building a Story Brand by Don Miller. Those are the first 2 books. If you read those 2 books at the same time, that will help you to build a website, build a brand, build a marketing deck, build the slides you need to raise money if you want to work with investors. It's going to help you just pull those ideas out of your head and turn those ideas into something that's worth investing in, whether it's just your time, energy, or somebody else's money.
Love it. I'm a big Don Miller fan.
Don Miller is the man. I saw him speak in person at a Tony Robbins event. It was mind-blowing. He's so good. Simon Sinek too. I've seen him just amazing. Um, so start with those two books. Huge fan of both of those. And then, you know, there's so much like there, yeah, like to your point, podcasts are amazing. I love listening to podcasts, like How I Built This, and all those kind of podcasts are awesome. They're really inspiring. But you can go down just a deep rabbit hole of like just listening to things and absorbing things and then not actually taking any action. And I think you can get really stuck if you just, try to be a sponge too much and you don't just try and do and fail. Like little small failures along the way are so, so valuable. And so, start with a book, start with a podcast, start with those kind of things. And then hop on Instagram or LinkedIn or anywhere else that you like to connect with other humans and find someone that either has done or is currently doing something very similar to what you want to do, and then go offer value to that person. Work for free for them. Go intern with them. Buy them coffee, buy them dinner. Just try to get it, 10 minutes with them. Do a podcast with them. If you have, start a podcast just to interview them, just to get in the room. And pick that person's brain, try to, create a friendship with them. Because God, you can just plow through years of mistakes and things that you should know and didn't know by just having an hour-long conversation with somebody who's in the thick of it currently, which is the benefit of podcasts like this, but it's specifically tuned to you because it's like, hey, I want to start a watch company. You run a jewelry business. Can you tell me all the ins and outs and pros and cons and all that stuff? We're not going to be competitors, but like, I want to be like you. And most people that approach me with something like that, I'm like, hell yeah, like like you're buying lunch? Sweet, where are we going? That's fun. It's so cool to help other people. And they don't really need something out of it. But if you give them something out of it too, like either free work or like, help or something like that, then it gives you a really good foot in the door. And then those people can be your mentors, your advisors, maybe even investors at some point. And that can become like addicting too. It's like, finding other people. So I would say start with like 3 to 5 people. You don't need to do that too often or too much. But I think connecting one-on-one in person with people doing similar things can really expedite that education process when you're getting started.
That's awesome. A couple quick things before we wrap up here. So for the engineers out there that are listening, they're like, yeah, I'm in my engineering classes right now, and I love problem solving, and I love creating things and thinking about how things are made. What's kind of the pitch on entrepreneurship as opposed to just, staying at the Fortune 100 company and being an engineer?
There's a new problem every single day. And you got to get real creative to solve those problems. And engineering, to your point, John, it's creative problem solving. And so I think being an entrepreneur is being an engineer. No matter what your definition of engineer, if you're an engineer in the coding world too, it's the same thing, right? So that's really fun, is to just have all these problems to solve all the time. And then the second one is like, engineering is so, again, depending on what type, honestly, I would say most engineering degrees and focuses, you're in a box, right? You're an aerospace engineer designing an aircraft. You're a logistics engineer designing a logistics system. You're a development engineer. You're writing code for a certain piece of software app or whatever. You're in this box, and your employer, no matter how big they are, they give you space to play. And the big employers like Walmart, like I had a lot of space to play. It was really fun. It was cool. I had like a $20 million capital budget as a 20-something. Super cool. But I have a box. I have a space to play. As an entrepreneur, there is no limit to the amount of results that I can get from the effort that I put in. I am not in a box. I get to wake up every day and do whatever I want. And yes, it's mine to lose. I can mess it up any day because I don't have a limit and because I don't have anyone that I'm like answering to. But man, is that like freedom inducing and it creates all this awesome ideas. So if you like to be put in that box and have those parameters because that gives you sanity, entrepreneurship might not be for you. But if you just heard what I said and be like, oh man, like I got to get out of this box, try something, dip your toe in, do a side hustle, do something to just see if it's going to work. I can't recommend it enough. It's just
well, it's you still have that back. You have that safety net, right? You have that
100%
skill set.
I was just talking to my wife last night about like just I don't know, for some reason we were having this conversation of like, if we weren't entrepreneurs, like what would we be doing? And yeah, with my, now I have 10 years of running a business. Like I can apply to any of the Fortune 100s right now with an engineering degree from Penn State and 10 years of running a profit and loss statement, and running a business. They'll be like, holy shit, that's a 6-figure salary. We're going to move you to this. We're going to do this. How do we get this person? And even if you only have 6 to 12 months of doing that, I think most employers, especially big companies, would be like, you know what? Good for you giving it a shot. Welcome back, and that's when I left Walmart, they were like, if you decide to come back, we're in Bentonville, Arkansas, you're just going to have to move here. And so yeah, there's nothing wrong with giving it a shot. And I don't see any downside, besides the financial stuff. Like it is risk. So do the math, but as long as you can afford to take the risk, just give it a shot. I think it's so fun.
That's awesome, man. So my goal for 2025 is to obtain my first Vortic, and it's going to be a Rockford. I grew up in Rockford, Illinois, and Rockford was a notoriously successful manufacturing town in the early 1900s. And as manufacturing left Rockford, the town experienced a lot of challenges, and a ton of my family's still there, and I've got family members that are aldermen and really involved in the community. My dad runs a business there, and they're really passionate about growing the Rockford economy, and to be able to eventually wear a pocket watch manufactured in my hometown, but then repurposed and rebuilt to be a wristwatch made by a College Works alumni. I think that's about the coolest. Like for people that I talk to about watches, and they're like, "What's your dream watch?" And like, I do like IWC, but I don't think I'd ever want to own a Rolex but my dream watch is that Rockford Vortic. I think there's just so much meaning behind it for me that it would be very special.
Well, I'll send you some really cool ones that I just bought, and I'll tempt you, and we'll have a chat.
Oh, well, I check watch of the week, watch of the day constantly. Yeah. Your email person is like, this guy's opened up more of our emails than anyone who hasn't bought a watch yet. Should we take him off the email list? And I keep checking every day. There was a Rockford I almost bought this summer. This is how I'm serious about how often I check these things. But it had the side dial, and I wasn't sure if I didn't know how comfortable that would be if I wore it all the time.
Yep.
And for me, it wouldn't just be a collector thing that sits in a box. I'd wear it every day. And I was like, I don't know if I want that bezel in my wrist. So I'll wait until there's a top dial Rockford, and then it's mine. So watch out if you're checking the watch of the day. I don't think our interns probably need to go shop for a Vortic quite yet. They need to pay off student loans, get that first home down payment, and get their Roth IRA maxed. But for all the College Works alumni listening, go get yourself a Vortic.
Yeah. VorticWatches.com, and now we have ColoradoWatchCompany.com, and Colorado Watch Company they're 1,400 and 1,900 respectively. So they're a different price point, hopefully for more people if you just want to buy something that's made in Colorado. A little bit different. It's not the pocket watch inside, but they're inspired by all those designs, and they're super fun. And we do graduation gifts. So
there you go.
If your parents want to just real splurge on something, this is a fun graduation gift.
Got some amazing military watches. You got a lot of really cool stuff. Well, we really appreciate you joining us today and sharing some advice to our audience. And we're cheering you on, and we're going to keep watching the development and growth of your brands and your career. And we hope to have you on again in 5 or 10 years and hear updates on all the amazing things going on. So thanks for joining us today, RT. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. It was super fun, and anytime.